There's Rickshaw. And we have the ladies and the horses. So I'll just kind of float about the peripherals here and give you a wee view of what things are like. There's Mr. Ferrick. Are you not wearing your new vest? How cool do I look, man? How cool do I look? You in the live vest, folks? Does my bum look big in this?
This is before the watershed, folks. Apologies.
Well, it's quite a nice wee crowd here this morning, folks. Quite a nice vibe, a nice atmosphere. So we'll see how it goes. See how it pans out. I don't know if I can manage this massive walk or is it? There's Billy Knox. How's Billy? There's the famous Billy Knox. How you doing? How you doing this morning, Billy?
Aye, fine.
Have you been snapping a few things over there? I haven't seen you for a couple of years, mate. It seems like a couple of years anyway, yeah? Oh, but I've been been all over the place.
I see you doing a wee walk that time. I see you doing a wee walk.
Oh, aye. A good 500 odd mile, you know.
Aye.
Stretches the legs, eh?
Indeed.
You know, I'm not getting any younger, like, I've got to keep moving. You'll know that feeling. Having a wee bit of banter there with Mr. Knox. How you doing? All right? I don't like getting my picture taken. There's Ian McNeil, Bridges for Indy Fame. Ian, how we doing this morning, buddy?
I'm fine, I'm always fine. Especially when I come this. Gets me at the house for a couple of
Stretches the legs. I don't know if I can handle this massive walk. It's a bit far for me.
It's less than 9 minutes. I'll hold that long anyway.
to a kind of mixture of two marches this morning. There's like Independent Socialist Scotland, and we have it all under one banner. But it looks like there's a few mixed. It looks like there's a few mixed people in between here. Sorry folks, my gimbal's not working. It was working yesterday when I done a live stream, but it just seems to be working today. So you're going to have to put up with a kind of Blair Witch Project effect, but I don't think you'll bother. John, how you doing? All right, Ross boy. Walk up and down here. Seems like in a mixed march. You've got the Independent Socialist Scotland, Dissolve the Union. There, Dissolve the Union banner. have, and that's the end. That's the end. So it's a healthy wee match here this morning. Not seen any sign of any kind of orange order marches or whether they've finished yet, or anti-vaxxers. I'm not 100% sure. There's my co-pilot, Mr. Fennick up ahead. Scottish Resistance banner. This is a kind of scene in Glasgow this morning. It looks a lot busier than when it first started. So maybe a lot of folk have caught up. 11:15 in the morning. A bit early in it, but it's better that than getting, I don't know, getting into bother. Quite a heavy police presence here. All right, James, how you doing? Let's get the front gears a wee better shot here. Get a wee live stream of my big pal Chris.
Yeah, well, this is really the symbolism at the top of the hat. That's the boundary.
probably just delete that comment, I'll give a wee view of the full match here. I'll just stand in this doorway and have my coffee. It's looking quite healthy today. Let's have a wee walk down here because I've just noticed a banner that wasn't there at the start. There's my colleague Mike who just he's ordered me to the other side of the road. I'm not happy.
I know. Well, this is it, isn't it? FP5, or, you know, FP4.
So I'll give you a view the extent of the match. It's quite a small gathering here today, but like I've always said, it doesn't matter how many people you've got behind you as long as it's the right people. Well, I need to watch what I'm doing with live music because for some reason the copyright there's the all under one banner. All under one banner. Right, I'm going to try and get away from this live music in case they end up muting it, which they keep on doing on Independence Live, even though it's outside. Not 100% sure whether they can do that, but they do it anyway. shelter after the Polish there. But I'll not be the first time.
That's slow down, that's not right, slow down a tiny
I think we've been told to slow down. That'll be a first. There a laddie there with all the gear, and I'm just with a simple selfie stick and a gimbal that's not working. I'll just give you a wee view of the full match here. If you can see it right up there, it looks quite impressive. Going to have a wee walk up here, folks, because I see a lot more salt tyres. It's as if I'm not 100% sure what's happening here, was it? I think everybody's just chumming together. There's a dissolve the union banner. So all right. I think this might actually be people that's joining the match, maybe kind of late. Yeah. There's a beat it Boris. Yeah, that was quite good. We view the maps in Glasgow here, all under one banner. Sack Boris Johnson. I don't know your feelings on Boris Johnson. I'm here totally unbiased today, so I'll keep that to myself. But I think, I think the majority of Scots would actually like him to stay, but I don't think he can stay. It's really he's went far and beyond gross misconduct, but then again he's not really got an employment contract, does he? But see what happens. But I think that seems to be the first match of the season. Yeah, it seems to be a good vibe. Yeah. I'm looking for Mr. Fenwick so we don't end up getting live streams crossed. There's some people clapping. Yeah.
They're together, because you think, what on earth would you not be? It's football.
Well, that was one thing I learned during my matches. The amount of range, because I used to think I was the only one at one time. Yeah, I'm saying, I'm not sure.
But why would they not be? Because about half the population is...
I don't like bringing us into it. It's football and religion.
Still, it makes a point without having to say anything, doesn't it? The fact you're here and you're wearing it.
I've not worn one of these since before the referendum because I was too embarrassed to wear one.
Aye,
You know what I mean?
yeah, I do.
When I woke up that morning and seen the result,
I know, yeah.
the embarrassment, the world's over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I
You know,
know.
the countries that wanted independence, you're the ones that never took.
Yeah.
It doesn't say much about
Yay!
many of the people who run about.
I know.
Hopefully things will be different the next time.
Oh, it will. It
Once
will.
Boris and his gang keeps doing what they're doing, well,
Do you know, and it doesn't matter if he goes because the queue of people behind him is just as bad. So,
Worse in some cases.
worse,
well,
yeah.
See my mark. A lot of the events I've been, I used to go out with the buckets. I was even surprised to see Yorkshiremen put £20 notes.
Oh, aye, yeah.
The amount of English people have stood shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
And wants independence more than
Well, Steve here is from, where are you from?
Somerset.
Somerset?
Yeah.
That's a good bit done.
Yeah.
That's near a Cornwall, isn't it? If I remember right.
Yeah, near.
Because I worked for a big company, English China Clay down in Cornwall.
Oh, I
yeah,
know
yeah, I
somebody
know that.
who works for English China
I
Clay.
questioned, why am I down here? The Scottish guys work better. I'm like kicking the goalies for congratulations about being a worker.
The guy I knew was from there originally, and he'd been posted to Edinburgh, so he was running their Scottish version.
I loved it, beautiful down there, so it's different way of life.
No, you're all right. Carry on. Not a problem. It's quite good having the cars this close actually, because they're all having a really good look and taking some pictures.
I go breakfast Mondays later.
That is always the risk. But I don't know, my car's got stickers all over it. I've never had any
I
problem.
used to have big solidarity letters stuck beside the bar water, so I was recognised everywhere.
Oh yeah.
I was doing a lot for the homeless through the night,
Uh-huh.
because that's when there's these services for the homeless.
Yeah.
Anyway, this random Asian guy, he says, I've been watching you, and I'm, oh, what's coming here? And he's doing to take tyres out. He says, see if you ever need new tyres, you come to my garage, chuck that road, I'll give you new tyres.
Oh. See,
I've
there's
been watching you.
there's good folk around. That's the
Well, 3
thing.
weeks later, because I reported the guy that run the homeless thing, because he was a bit of a narcissist that shouldn't be allowed to work with any vulnerable people. And I reported him to Tommy Sheridan, your party leader, because this guy ran us. He was your party secretary. Tommy, sham investigation. None of my witnesses were questioned, even homeless people weren't questioned. And I never heard the outcome, so I walked away. I said, I refused to be the same party as anybody like that.
Well, what
But
can you say?
when I walked away, I had a phone call. This Muslim Aman. He says, God says you can fight us. And I didn't even know who I'm talking to. I'm fighting us.
Is that you?
He says, I represent the Muslim community in Glasgow. And the Muslim community are a generous community. They want to do something for the homeless. They want you to run it. And I says, what happens to the people I can't help through the day? Don't worry about that, leave that with us. The last person that says that to me, get my team. What a difference it can make with a team.
Oh, definitely.
So I says, I don't mean to be rude. I says, but there's all the Muslims for independence. I says, all these rallies I go to, I never see any Muslims. I says, if I do, there's an hand for it. He says, leave that with me. And I voted yes. Next rally, we'll get about 30,000 Muslims. But we get happy COVID, didn't we?
Still though, they're still there.
What's the name of one of the head ladies in Pensioners for Independence?
Marlene Halliday.
No, not apart from Marlene. I know Marlene. She's up there with the red bonnet. Just in front of
Oh,
them.
Mary McKay.
Yes, Mary McKay.
Oh well, we could give her away.
We had a little word together and I couldn't remember her name for the life of me.
Let's say hello. Hello. Is that the famous Mary McKay?
So it's It is, isn't it?
I think it is. I don't know. Up close, maybe not. Maybe somebody completely
Not feeling brave
innocent.
enough to dive in and say, "Are you?"
Let me see your own zooms and I'm not sure how, recognisable. So, well, you get to the point, you're just walking, you kind of lose all track of where you actually are. Well-dressed supporters here. I like looking at their faces in the cars because some of them are, if they're staring straight ahead and with a fixed expression, you know.
That'll be a no voter then.
Oh, look at the windows up there. Marlene was saying the other day that she's involved through Pensioners for India in the group they're giving feedback on the Constitution as it comes. And I just suddenly thought, God, imagine being part of making a constitution for your country.
Yeah.
How many people get the chance to do that?
Very few.
And then why would they then go, no thanks? It's ridiculous.
Not interested.
I can turn it around that way, and then I can't see what I'm taking. Sorry folks, if that makes you seasick.
I wonder if they dug some of these posters out from before.
I think they-
So I think I'm not doing too bad for Gimbal. Didn't seem to want to work this morning, so I'm using the old school selfie stick. People stopping us and asking, what the hell's going on here, mate, you know? But yeah, it kind of feels like that. But yeah, it kind of feels like that. stand up for your right. Got to stand up for your right. I think that's us nearly at the end yet. Yeah, I think that's us nearly at the end. It's been a healthy wee march. And we'll see what's a healthy wee march just in the Glasgow Green. I see right there, so I'll get ahead. And I shall head up to the stage and see what's happening up there. So, I'll maybe take a wee scoot out here and get a better view. Get a wee bit of scale in the shot, you know. If anybody checks out my photographs on my Facebook profile, like a bit of scale.
To my son the other day, like, where is it? Like, he's 28, so he's not exactly like, down with the kids anymore. But you know. So where would you need to be to reach that? TikTok or somewhere like that.
Right.
Which I don't know. I mean, I sort of drew the line at Instagram was one step too far for me.
There's a point where you just can't be bothered to take it on anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And there's just
not another new platform.
especially when you're trying to do it on a phone and you can't quite see the writing. And your fingers are too big for the thing. I know. Or needs a longer pull. He's made the effort though, looking lovely. Well, yes. Well, for a very short notice, March for January, and you really, you know, you're only getting people who can easily drop everything and get to Glasgow, aren't you? I just said it's quite nice for a wee change of scene anyway, isn't it, a stroll?
Live streaming as well?
Yes.
Right.
So he's got a much better camera than I have. So he's going to do the speeches, and I'm just going to dither around and then wander back up to the steps and get the CND one, which hopefully I think Marlene might be coming to as well.
All right.
So plenty of footage.
Yeah.
I was thinking it's quite funny. This is not at all how I thought I would be spending my retirement. Who knew?
I mean, what led you into being an independence activist?
Just because when I retired, I was looking around for things to do, and I came across, and I think it was a newspaper, just a wee advert saying there was a Women for Indie meeting, and I was like, oh, I agree with independence. And it was great because, yes, and I've met some, you know, really good group of friends with that.
Yeah.
And then the radio was just kind of, because the podcast we did with Clark's wife was on the radio, so I came into the radio for an interview about it, and then you just kind of get dragged in, you know. And then Independence Live is just the sort of next extension of that to see what we can do with the visual format.
Probably still 9,500 flyers in my garage. 10,000 was probably slightly optimistic.
Well, I don't know, go large or go home, as they say.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, if we've got a whole season of marching,
Yeah.
then what would be good is if, I saw there was a little bit of a thread on Discord today about people getting involved with some of the marketing
Yes,
side.
yeah.
And actually, maybe if we could share them around a bit.
Yeah. I mean, if it was a big march like your big one 2 years ago, you couldn't do it with one person.
Yeah, oh yeah, you'd need.
There's only been 3 of us, so we try to cover as much as we can. Maybe a lot of folk not too keen at the moment to get fully out and about, but yeah, get out there, be seen, get the saltire out. Absolutely no idea where this music's coming from. I can hear it, but I can't see it. It actually sounds like it's coming from the trees as I pass them, but obviously up ahead. Just hoping it's not copyrighted, that.
Here now than there was.
I think there is. I think some must have joined us on the way.
Yeah.
This is definitely more than at the start, which is good.
Yeah. Good stirring music.
I know, it's fabulous. It's just a shame we can't broadcast it.
Yeah.
Where the sun shines, unlock the love.
Kevin can kill the sound if he needs to.
That's a pain.
I don't know if he's seen any of this, but
Right.
it's going to their Facebook page, so.
On the banks of Loch Lomond,
Oh, Women for Indie, yeah.
we parted, and young shady
That is definitely more than was at
Yeah,
George
definitely.
Square. It's still coming.
But I don't know which ones I gave flyers to, so
Wow.
can't go around again.
Have you given them all away, have you?
No, I've still got stacks in my bag. And that is it.
Right, that looks like that's everybody on the green. So I'm going to go up and get some speeches. Oh, lovely to see you.
I was going to say,
So long. Take care.
one of the bright spots of today, actually, I keep meeting you for the first time. Only because I feel like I know you, but I've never met you in the car. So, moving to the next one. Alright?
Catch you later. Right, so that's the march. Definitely bigger than it was in George Square, so people must have been joining on the way, which is great. I'm going to try and get...
The refugees and immigrants have been attacked by the Tories to show solidarity with the thousands of people up and down the country that have sacrificed throughout the pandemic. Have been forced to live with a Tory government in power who have really just looked down on people and treated them like muck. So, one of the things that's exposed for us is not just the Tories, but the nature of the whole British state, the stinking British state that's brought them into power in the first place. And that's why we say, get rid of Boris Johnson, end Tory rule, but independence now. That's the only way we're going to actually fundamentally change things. Okay, so, and the other thing, I think, the final thing I want to say, I think it also points to the different type of Scotland we want up here. Scotland that treats people with sympathy and caring, that gets rid of nuclear weapons, that supports the NHS, that welcomes immigrants and refugees, that does something fundamental about climate change. All of these things we're here to protest about. And we can build upon this. If we get rid of Johnson, then we can build upon it. We know there'll be other Tories behind them. But this is not the last demonstration this year. This is not the last time Islander and Banner will be hitting the streets. So for us, we get rid of Johnston, but the battle and the fight goes on. So that's why we're out today. Okay, I'm going to introduce our first speaker here today, Stephen Flynn, SNP MP. Thank you, Stephen.
Hello everyone, how do you follow Bob? I think he's just stolen my entire speech there. Absolutely fantastic. And you know, it's fantastic for me to be here because over the last couple of weeks I've been down in Westminster, as Neil has indeed as well, and we've seen firsthand the chaos and the corruption, and indeed some of the lightweight politicians down there as well, who've turned a blind eye to what the Prime Minister has done over the course of the last couple of years. And I'm going to turn my attention to that quite quickly, because as you know, as I know, as everyone up and down Scotland knows, this Prime Minister is a charlatan, this Prime Minister is corrupt, and this Prime Minister is a liar. And absolutely. And the reality is, if we look over the course of the last year or two, what we've seen is a Prime Minister who has just taken 20 quid away from the poorest in society when we're on the brink of a cost of living crisis. This is a guy who was quite happy, however, to hand out billions of pounds worth of PPE contracts on the dodgy VIP lane, a VIP lane that is now being found to be unlawful. And this is a man who partied, as Bob said, whilst people across Scotland and across the UK were dying. Boris Johnson needs to go, and he needs to go now. But let me be clear, the issues that Scotland has with the Conservative Party, they don't start and they don't stop with Boris Johnson. Not since 1955, some 70 years, have the people of Scotland endorsed the Tories in the ballot box, yet we have been the ones who've had to bear the brunt of their policies to hammer the poorest in societies whilst they feather their own corporate nests, whilst they continue repeatedly to ignore the democratic views of the people of Scotland. So Boris Johnson doesn't just need to go, the Tories need to go too. But beyond just that, let me be clear once again, the issues that we have with Westminster don't start and stop with Boris Johnson, they don't start and stop with the Tories. Because Westminster is an antique. It's so inveigled in its own pomp and ceremony that it doesn't care about you or me or anyone else up and down Scotland. They've got more unelected for London than there is MPs for Scotland. We are but a footnote to them, an irrelevance, an annoyance whose resources that they have taken and plundered decade after
just in case
decade. But there's still people in Scotland, there is still some people in Scotland who think that Westminster can be saved. The Lib Dems who say there can be a federal UK, right? There's the Labour Party who say give us another chance to get it right. Well, we've been there and we've done that, and they've failed us time and time again. The last time they had a chance, they took us to war in Iraq, an illegal war in Iraq, and we know fine well that if Keir Starmer becomes Prime Minister, he'll be quite happy for nuclear weapons to be sat just a few miles from this great city, and we know that we will have no future within the European Union on his watch. So let's be done with Boris Johnson, let's be done with the Tories, let's be done with Westminster, and let's be done with their union. And folks, let's build something better. Let's build something that's got compassion at its heart, that's got people at its heart, that's got our values and our principles at its core. Let's do that, and let's do that together. You know, whilst Westminster was dealing with the chaos of a ridiculous Prime Minister over the course of this week, in Scotland there was an announcement, as you've all probably seen, about Scotland, the £700 million that's coming in as part of the renewables revolution that's away to happen off our coast. Let's make sure that the resources that Scotland has, that this time they benefit the people of Scotland, and that they don't end up plundered by the Tories at Westminster. And let's take that positive vision for Scotland, of the vision that we want, or the way we want Scotland to be, and let's take it to the people. Let's take it to their doorsteps, leaflet after leaflet, conversation after conversation, and let's make sure that collectively, together, we become independent. Thank you very much.
Yay!
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
The next speaker we have is Charlotte Ahmed from Now Scotland. Give Charlotte a big hand.
Hello everybody, thank you for coming here. The estimate is there's about 1,000 of you, so well done to you, because you are showing leadership of this movement. I'm going to start with a quote from 102 years ago. And this was the first meeting of the Irish Parliament. This was part of the Declaration. The elected representatives of the Irish people alone have power to make laws binding on the people of Ireland, and that the Irish Parliament is the only parliament to which it will give its allegiance. That was 102 years ago, after a struggle, and of course everyone didn't get everything they wanted out of that struggle, but nevertheless those words of independence and freedom are still relevant today.
Years on,
102
we have a
years
system
on,
where people in Scotland consistently through the democratic process do not vote Tory, and yet we have the Tories imposed upon us, whether it be Westminster elections, whether it be council elections, whether it be the Scottish parliamentary elections. We vote one way as a people, we get another government we don't elect imposed upon us. It's time that that stopped. Now, most people didn't actually, mate. Now, what do we do about it? Some of you might have been here during COP26. There were 100,000, over 100,000 people marched here. And they were marching for different reasons. For climate justice, for justice for immigrants, anti-racist, for defending communities who have been the victims of 10 years of Tory austerity. And I would say to people, and I know some people have said, we don't want to get rid of the Tories because they're the best advert for independence. I do not agree with that position, and I will say that. I'm a socialist. I want the Tories removed for the damage they're doing to society and this damage they're doing to your communities. Every single day, housing, health, employment, the chances for a future for the youth are being taken away by millionaires and billionaires. I do not want that to continue, and I'm sure you don't either. So what do we do about it? And what I would say, I'm representing here Now Scotland. It's a small organisation in this big movement of ours. It's tried to foster unity between different people and reach out to different groups to bring them into this indie movement. Trade unionists, young people who are the majority of people who support independence but do not have their voices heard enough in this movement. We've tried to reach out to people campaigning on housing, on health, trade union rights, on justice for economic migrants, etc., and climate justice. We want to continue to do that, but what I would say is we need the leadership of this movement to step up. When will you get a better time with the Westminster government in disarray, the opposition in disarray, the Labour Party in Westminster, and we, the people, wanting change? It's not enough now, I think, to just go and turn up and vote one way, because we don't get what we vote for. Everybody in this movement has to think, what is the next step for this movement? I want to see these marches huge. I want to see groups in towns and communities all over Scotland calling for independence. And much more than that, I want to see the leadership of this movement step up and deliver what they promised to deliver, and that is independence. And if the people have to take that leadership role themselves, then let's do it. Thank you very much. Keep up the fight.
Right, thanks folks. We've already had a SNP MP speaking to us. We're now going to have an AUOB Party MP speaking to us. The Spirit of Unity. Neil Hanvey, could you come up and address the rally, please? Thank you.
Hello, all under one banner. I want to pay tribute to each and every one of you for coming out this morning to take a stand against Boris Johnson and to stand up for Scotland's independence. It really is, might be a case of we're small in number today, but we're certainly strong in spirit and determination, and so you've all to be congratulated for that. You know, I was reflecting about politics because of all of the hoo-ha that's going on with Boris Johnson and his absolute vacuum of character. And I would say that I found politicians fall broadly into two different groups. There are politicians who want to do important things, and there are politicians who want to feel important. And I think it would be fair to say that Boris Johnson takes the sense of self-importance to stratospheric levels of self-indulgence. If the man had an ounce of humility, he would die of absolute embarrassment of given the events of recent weeks. But anyway, my involvement in frontline politics has always had one principal ambition, and that is to pursue and secure the normal state of an independent nation for Scotland. And I'm not unique in that ambition. I think that's largely what brings us all here today, and it's something that we share. The reasons for that might vary, but I'll share a few of my thoughts on that just now, and I believe the events of the last few weeks underscore why independence is something that is a very pressing and urgent matter, and something that we need to tackle accordingly. Regardless of what some people might say, time is most certainly not on our side. And the general election of 2010 ushered back in the Tories with the help of Nick Clegg's Lib Dems shamefully. And in that moment I knew that it would be bad. I knew that it would be bad for our communities, that they would suffer, that our economy would suffer, that poverty and greed would rise and that compassion would fade into the shadows. I knew this because I remember when Thatcherism stalked the streets of London and decimated industry, fractured communities, broke people and robbed them of hope. The resignation of Boris Johnson will change absolutely none of that. It's just the face that changes. And it risks ushering in a more presentable, a more palatable face, such as Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss. And that is dangerous to our people, and it is dangerous to our cause. We should all benefit from the vast prosperity and the resources that we are gifted with in Scotland. Instead, they're handed on a plate to profiteering corporate interests, and while our people are cold and hungry, where our people turn to the oblivion of drink and drugs because hopelessness has replaced opportunity. Of course, Boris Johnson should resign, but the only resignation that matters to me is Scotland's resignation from the iniquitous union that delivers Tory governments that we never vote for. We've not supported a Tory government since 1955, as Stephen rightly said. In that time, there have been 14 different Prime Ministers. 10 of them have been Conservative, 11 if you count Tony Blair. Not one of them have served Scotland well. Why on earth would any of us think that removing Boris Johnson from his job will change Scotland's situation one iota? Of course, Boris Johnson should go, but it won't get rid of the cost of living crisis. It won't lift the benefit cap. It won't remove the rate clause, reinstate universal credit, eradicate child poverty, remove the UK Internal Market Act, fix the NHS, remove sleaze from Westminster, or replace billions lost to cronyism and corruption through COVID contracts. Of course, Boris Johnson should resign, or at the least he should be hounded out of office by a media that was doing its job. That he remains in his office without a shred of humility is a clear indication of how out of touch this British nationalist union has become. The ship to a Section 30 referendum has unfortunately sailed. So I want you to ask yourself this: who should decide Scotland's future? The people of Scotland must make that decision, and they must do so through any democratic means. So I urge the Scottish Government to call a constitutional convention to chart our path to independence. We must unite and galvanise. The time for independence for Scotland is now. Thanks very much, folks.
I thought it was you. Bob, I'll do it. Sorry, I forgot I was to introduce somebody. Feroz Quraish is an NHS worker and she's an anti-racism campaigner. We're just going to fix the mic there a wee bit.
Thank you.
So, big hand for Feroz.
Thanks.
Sorry for forgetting.
Welcome. You forgot about me. You just. Hi everyone. Is there anything good to say about the Tories? I'm still waiting to hear. I have a question for you. What were you doing on the 5th of May 2020? Can you remember? I certainly can remember. I was working in a lab at the Glasgow Royal Infirmary, as many NHS staff were also. Some staff, especially nurses, working in ICU with prints on their faces, sores from the tight face masks that they were wearing, saving lives. No one broke the rules like Boris and his corrupt pals having jolly parties at Westminster. The Tories have made many bad choices to only benefit themselves and not the ordinary hard-working people like you and I. I don't know where really to start with the Tories and all the bad choices that they've made in the past. From the way the pandemic has been handled to the awful new legislations such as the policing bill, which is a threat against democracy. and the anti-refugee bill, which is a threat against humanity. Thousands of people flee famine, persecution, terrorism, poverty caused by wars that have, well, the Tories and the previous government, Tony Blair, can I just say, does not deserve a knighthood. It's an absolute disgrace, that he's been knighted for killing millions of people. The Tories have engaged in wars around the world that have caused so much misery for people that they have to flee their homes and their families. And of course, having climate change does not help either. That's only made the problems even worse.
Yeah, but
people don't choose to leave their families and home, but they do it out of desperation. Has anyone seen desperation for themselves? So desperate that people will take the risk to drown in the English Channel. They come to this country to seek safety, shelter, protection, and of course contribute to society. The NHS is a prime example. The birth and the success of the NHS is owed to the thousands of migrants that came after World War II from the British colonies, from Asia, Africa and the Caribbean. Today, 15% of NHS staff are non-British nationals. Priti Patel's Home Office policies threaten the 15% to be deported. And this also threatens the NHS itself.
I'm getting an interview.
The pandemic has shone a light on the inequalities in our workplaces and society. Minorities have been disproportionately affected by COVID, not because they are black or brown, but because the majority are poor, live in deprived areas and most likely work frontline. COVID does not discriminate on the grounds of race. It does, however, discriminate on the grounds of socioeconomic status. Under the Tories, poverty has increased because the system is broken and we demand system change now. We can bring system change. Look at the people's spirit on Kenmure Street months ago, on how and it shows it's such a great example of how it's possible to defy Westminster. The power of the people held the day was power against Priti Patel's National and Borders Bill, and thus an action that defied Westminster. The spirit is needed. That same spirit on Kenmure Street is needed in this independence movement for a Scotland that is compassionate and welcoming of new Scots. It would be absolutely amazing if everyone here can join thousands of people on the 19th of March. 19th of March is the UN Anti-Racism Day, and there'll be a huge demo. Let's show Westminster our strength and diversity on the 19th of March. Thank you so much.
Right, hi folks. I don't know if you're aware of it, but over here there's a building, the People's Palace, that's been shut since 2017. There's a wee demonstration that's going on over there today, a wee party to celebrate the People's Palace. And we've got another speaker, Ian Ferguson from Glasgow Against Closures, to talk about some of the activity that's been going on in the city, some of the campaigns about the libraries, etc. So Ian's going to come up and tell us a bit about the demo and what's been going on with Glasgow Against Closures. Thank you, Ian.
For the independence movement.
Well, you know what to say, Ian.
Keep polishing power.
You can't polish a tuck, but you can roll it in glitter. That's about it.
Can he change the colour of a turd?
It's come from Maryhill Library this morning, where we were having a victory party. I suppose it was really a business meeting because we had cheese and wine and stuff. So
I'm having a wee walk about.
I actually don't know if I was there.
A few people.
Nobody's told me yet, but we think we were
there, right? But it was a real victory because for the past 8 months, since last May, at Maryhill, at Whiteinch, at Goma, at other places, and like this place, as Bob mentioned, across the road, we have been fighting to get our libraries reopened. It's an absolute disgrace that in Scotland in 2022, young people, kids in Maryhill have no access to a library, and White Inch have had no access to a library. So for 8 months now, since last May, last June, they reopen our libraries, and I'm very pleased to announce, brothers and sisters, that we have now won. Okay. Because of our campaign in December, the Scottish Government suddenly managed to find £1.4 million, which means that on Monday at 10 o'clock, people in Maryhill and in White Inch and in the Cooper will be able for the first time for 3 years to go back into their libraries, take out their books, use their computers. It's a real victory. So that's fantastic, and it shows what can be achieved. But I also want to say this, we still have to keep the fight, because first of all, the money that's been made available is only for 1 year. So we have to make sure that after that time is up, that library stays open, and that folk in Maryhill and Rockhill in these areas are never left without that library again. That's the first point. The second point is, and Bob mentioned it, there are another 70 venues in Glasgow that have not reopened since COVID. COVID has been an excuse to make cuts, to keep community facilities shut. So in Drumchapel, in Easterhouse, in Rockhill, Glasgow Against Closure is still fighting to get all these venues reopened. But it's not that long since we saw 100,000 people demonstrating in Glasgow over COP. They were fighting for a future. Well, our community's banner at the COP demonstration said, "Gi's a future." We want a Scotland where children in areas like Maryhill and Rockhill and the south side don't have to fight to get access to a bloody book or to a library. Should not be forced to go to Amazon or whatever to get these things. These are our community facilities. So that fight goes on. And the final thing is this, that actually at the moment these venues are administered by a so-called arm's length organisation, Glasgow Life. That the excuse for not opening them was that Glasgow Life hadn't brought in enough revenue during the pandemic to keep them open. Well, our community facilities, our community centres, our libraries, our sports facilities should not depend on the market, should not depend on having to bring in enough money. These are our facilities. These are the future for our children and for our grandchildren. So we should demand that Glasgow Life is brought back under council control. These are our facilities. And the final thing I'll say is this. I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that without the support of Glasgow Against Closures, that without us being there every Saturday, that without the fantastic 2 demonstrations we've had over the past year, all of these facilities would still be shut. There's no doubt about that. It is our self-organisation. And I think there's a message there that if we want to get an independent Scotland, that's how we get it. It is organising from below. We did not rely on councillors. We did not rely on politicians. The struggle was from below, of ordinary working class people across the city linking up with trade unions to fight for that. That's how we'll get the kind of Scotland we want, and that's how we'll get rid of Johnson and all that swine in Westminster. Thank you.
Thank you. Just like to say, Mike Fenwick is here, and we're hoping that people will sign the Declaration of a Sovereign Scotland, and he's over towards that tree there, the guy with his hands up. If anybody wants to sign the Declaration, then that's the place to be. I'm just going to introduce the next speaker, and that's Chris McCusker, of the Trade Union Socialist Humanitarian and Aid Worker. Okay.
Good morning, comrades. I call you comrades. I make no bones about that, because we're all brothers and sisters in this struggle against the British state that has reduced Scotland basically to a laughingstock, because they have been robbing us blind for years and years and years, and it will go on. It will go on, because there is no questions being answered. This investigation by this, Interior Minister is going to do nothing but rap Boris on the knuckles, tell him that he's a wee bad boy and not to do it again. In order to escape that, we need to get out of Westminster ASAP. It's as simple as that. Dr. Philippa actually was in the Scottish National the other week there saying that we can't just, you know, roll up and come home. But as the last speaker said, that if we don't have the politicians that want to come home, then we have to work it from the grassroots up. Now, it's a privilege for me not to be standing on this stage, but to be addressing you, because it shows the equality that you don't have to be a politician in order to speak your mind. You don't have to be an elected member of council in order to state your case. The case is quite clear as far as I'm concerned, and the case is the fact that the unity and the solidarity that we have, the fact that we've got an SNP MP and an ALBA MP sharing the same stage, shows that we're closer to what we actually want. And it's that bonding of working together to enable Scotland to be able to stand up and be able to say that we're going to take this no longer. Because at the end of the day, the longer that we sit around and let the billionaires rob Scotland blind, then the likes of the services that have just been indicated to you will slowly be eradicated. The beautiful building behind us that was given to the people of Glasgow for their use is lying empty because of willful neglect by the actual Labour Council, not actually by the SNP Council. Yes, the SNP Council are not ploughing money into it, we know that. But that is of years of neglect. And if you look at that building and actually reflect of the fact that that is a mirror image of your own country, because your own country has been left to neglect. The other thing that I was wanting to touch on, which was really curious, I forget the lady's name, Farusha or something like that. She actually very eloquently spoke about migrants and refugees. I'm actually a humanitarian aid worker for Eastwood Refugee Aid. And last week we actually sent a van, a Luton van full of clothing, warm clothing, boots, jackets, scarves. Sent it all down to our friends at Care for Cali. That is still going on and it's not been reported. Yesterday in the European, there was a story about the fact that Germany wants to welcome in 400,000 workers in order to bolster their economy. Just think how many workers Scotland could welcome in when we have to rebuild our economy. But we have to have the powers of immigration in order to do that. I'm not teaching you to suck eggs here. You know this, and I know this. Everybody else knows this. But unfortunately, the British state knows this, and because of their racist politics, they are not allowing people to come over here and be able to work in our NHS, be able to teach our children, and be able to police our streets. Again, comrades, what we have to do is we have to unify together. ALBA, SNP, Green, Socialist, we all have to work together and get back to what all under one banner was back in 2014. That is a force of nature. I'm not going to use the force for good because that's stupid wee arse that we've not seen today, thankfully. But it's a force of nature, and when the force of nature stands up, it can affect change. Now, the one thing that I want to say just before I go is the fact that there are 66 countries that have left the British Empire, and not one country has ever asked to come back. Glasgow's not Barbados, by the way. Barbados had actually done it in December there, but Glasgow's not Barbados. But we can be the 66. We just have to work for it and be able to stand on our own 2 feet. Thank you very much.
Okay, folks, thanks, Chris. And this is going to be our last speaker coming up. And thanks for hanging around. 40 years ago this month, the British state murdered 28 people on the streets of Derry, simply fighting for civil rights. It's taken a long time. It took a long time for that to be admitted by the British state. But we've got Colin Bryce, who's a human rights activist and justice campaigner, up to tell us about that struggle and tell us about what happened in Derry in 1972. Thank you. Colin.
Thanks very much, Bob. It's actually 50 years ago next week, on the 30th of January 1972, that the people in Derry, the place that I grew up in, came face to face with the naked brutality and violence that I believe lies at the heart of the British state. A peaceful civil rights march, like the demonstration that you were on today, was attacked by soldiers from the parachute regiment of the British Army, who raced into the bogside and opened fire with rifles against defenceless people. 14 people were killed that day, another 15 people injured. And as if that wasn't bad enough, what happened after that is that the whole British state closed ranks and launched a cover-up full of lies and dishonesty, blaming the victims, saying that everybody who was shot and killed was carrying a gun or about to throw a nail bomb, and so on. And that became the official lie and the official cover-up that persisted for 38 years, until the families of the victims of Bloody Sunday and the people of Derry who marched and campaigned for year after year after year forced the British government to admit that every single person who was killed or wounded on Bloody Sunday was entirely innocent. And to give you an example of how far that went to the heart of the British establishment, the person who put together those lies was a guy called Captain Mike Jackson. He was a captain in the parachute regiment, and he sat that evening of Bloody Sunday and interviewed every soldier and concocted a lie about who they had shot at and why they had killed people. And that became the official statement of what happened on Bloody Sunday. It was backed up by the Lord Chief Justice of England, Lord Widgery, who came and did an inquiry and accepted all the lies that were told by the British Army. That guy, Mike Jackson, was knighted by the Queen. He went on to become the #1 British soldier in the British Army. Far from facing justice, he went on to become the chief the chief of the General Staff. When the British Army went into Afghanistan, when the British Army went into Iraq, when he was forced to come before the Savile inquiry, the second inquiry that the British government was forced to set up into Bloody Sunday, he lied through his teeth about what he'd seen on Bloody Sunday. He said he couldn't remember anything. 20 times on the stand, he said he could not remember. I cannot recall. He was in Rossville Street on Bloody Sunday in the Bogside. That day, he was there when the shooting was carried out, and he lied through his teeth. The chief of the General Staff of the British Army lied in his teeth to the Savile inquiry and said he could not recall. That is the nature of the British state. It is still the nature of the British state, and why we have to break it up and why we have to break away from it. And it'll come as no surprise to you, to any of you, that Boris Johnson, the British government was forced to announce that the victims of Bloody Sunday were innocent. But still, 12 years later, not a single person, not a single soldier, never mind the generals and the people like Mike Jackson who covered it up, not a single person has faced prosecution. The families are still campaigning for justice. But it'll come as no surprise to you that Boris Johnson has openly said that not a single British soldier should ever face prosecution, that he has brought legislation to the British Parliament to give a blanket amnesty to every single British soldier that has ever served anywhere across the world, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Ireland, and so on. That's the nature of the British state. Boris Johnson epitomises the lies, the corruption, the contempt for democracy, the contempt for justice that lies at the heart of the British state. And it's why, in the struggle for independence in Scotland, which has given hope to everybody who struggles for justice and struggles against imperialism right across the world, and Ireland right across the world, that we need to strike out in a different direction. We need to break from the imperialist state. We need to break with the imperialism of NATO, of trident weapons, the anti-democracy, the cover-ups, and all those things. We need to say that Scotland needs to be a beacon of democracy, of justice, of equality, and that everybody who struggles for justice right around the world, the Bloody Sunday families and the countless others who are the victims of British imperialism, are our brothers and sisters, and that anybody who's fleeing and looking for safety and looking for asylum is welcome here, and we will stand on our side. The struggle for Scottish independence will strike a great blow at the heart of the British state. That's why we should welcome it. That's why they fear it. And we should strike out and say that is what the sort of country that we want to break from the British state, and we want a country that is the opposite of what the British state stands for. Thanks very much.
Who's the last speaker?
Right. Okay, that was our final speaker. Just apologies to Colin for taking 10 years off the anniversary, 50 years since Bloody Sunday. That's us finished. That's your last speaker. Thanks for turning up. This is the first of a series of demonstrations that all under one banner are holding today. So the struggle does not end here. We'll keep the fight up to get rid of Johnstone, to get rid of the Tories, and to break up the British state. That's what we're out here for. That's why we're demonstrating. So the next march will be on the 5th of March in Paisley. Hope to see you all there. Keep up the fight. Thanks for turning up, folks. Thank you.
And that's a wrap for us, guys. I hope you enjoyed the live stream. Sorry about the shaky camera work. My gimbal refused to work. Hopefully I'll be working for next weekend, because I'll probably be doing a bit of jumping about, a bit of climbing. So I'm signing off. It's Pedro Mendes, all under one banner, March Independence Live.